Why does my driving sound so angry, though?
Because it kind of is.
It looks angry. Zan, personally...
Well, it's fun, but... Yeah.
Dad, Zan, personally, I just like your driving because it's a little bit more exciting.
Yeah, you see? See, look at that. See? There's reason. I am safe driving.
Actually,
no, you're not.
I feel perfectly safe when Zan's driving. I feel perfectly safe when Jay is driving. The only time I don't feel safe is when I'm driving.
I don't feel safe when you're driving either.
I'm only saying that because I don't see the road.
Yeah, well, that could be a...
hold it open.
Okay, so we've gone over a bunch of things, and it's late here.
I think we lost Amethyst.
Our polyverse, and Amethyst is crashing out here. So one quick thing I would like you guys to say, like, what are the hardest things? Just touch on it a little bit. What are the hardest things about being a kid
What'd you write?
Being a kid by poly for the holidays. So being
part of a poly family.
Part of a poly family for the holidays.
I think the hardest thing that one would experience, and especially for the first few years, is that just because your immediate family had decided to go poly, that does not mean everyone else in the rest of the family totally agrees with it. So here you are, sort of, not exact, if your extended family aren't, mean about it, a lot of times they'll try to find sort of weak points in the relationship and try to chip at it, and using you as sort of a pickaxe to try to tear the people apart. I think that's the bad and worst aspects. I think the worst aspects are going to be like when you're just, when the poly relationship is just being settled. And this is basically, what tests the family before moving forward.
And so what would you say would be the best way then for... We have a thing where we say, anytime we mention communication, we say take a sip. So would you think that communication would help bridge that gap?
Communication is great, but it's not just any kind of communication. It depends on how and why you're communicating, what goal you have in mind, and how you want to go about it. You see, a wooden bridge would be fine if only one traveler were to cross it, but a freight truck, not so much. So, what I mean by that is certain kinds of communication can provide a totally different message based on just meaning, demeanor, what you say, what you don't say, what you mention, what you forget to mention, etc.
Well, Amethyst?
I also agreed with Gelt's point about not accepting family members. It hurt me personally when I would go to one particular set of grandparents and I could be happy and enjoy myself, but the other set of grandparents, I'd have to call sulky my friend instead of my sister, which would, hurt.
It really does hurt on both sides.
It hurts us as parents, too.
Yeah, but I think another part was probably the fact that when you tell people about that on the holidays, you're like, oh, I have to get all these gifts. And they're like, well, if you weren't, you wouldn't have to. And it's like, well, if you weren't alive, I wouldn't have to get you one, too. How about
that? Boom. Amethyst is laying it down. That's why we love her for that.
Yeah. I mean, but those problems are pretty rare. So, as we established earlier, you don't have to hang around the family members who say stuff like that.
But sometimes it takes a while to sort out who really is on your side and who isn't.
Right.
And that process can really suck for everybody involved.
Mm-hmm. But it helps you grow as a person, so that's good.
It does.
One thing I have to say is probably one of the worst things, because one of the worst things probably is, I mean, not only do I see this during the holidays, but I see this when I see this particular family member. So I have this grandparent who is my genetic, and I grew up with her.
My genetics. Yeah, throw it back to Repo.
And so she says she's accepting. Problem is she's having a hard time accepting my siblings. And it's really rough on me, and especially the others, because she likes to play favorites. And having being her genetic granddaughter and having grown up with her, I am her favorite. And the siblings aren't oblivious to what's going on either. I'm not. I notice, and it really sucks because I want them to be treated equally, because these are my siblings and these are also your grandchildren, and you should be treating them the exact same way that you are treating me, which goes back to the who's really accepting and who's not. And it's really rough, especially if sometimes you really just do have to call people out on the stuff, and I haven't exactly gotten to that point where I can do it myself because it scares me.
I do it.
Right. It scares me to talk up to her because I always saw her as an authority figure. And I mean, she still is because she's my grandma. But, it's one of those things you don't really talk back, but, you kind of have to call them out when they're pulling that stuff because it sucks and you don't want I never want to see my siblings hurt, and I know it hurts. And I see it in their eyes, and it hurts me. So I think that's probably one of the hardest things during the holidays, when I can see my grandparent playing favorites, and I know that they shouldn't be, and they know they shouldn't be, but they're doing it anyway.
No, do you think she's come around a little bit?
She's getting there, but I mean, it's taking her a really long time, but she's a little bit better.
Well, we talked about it on our last episode too. Some people, it just takes them a while, and some people end up treating people that way. Like, my family personally has a closer relationship with Zan than they do with Crow. Now, and they treat him a little bit differently. It's not that they're not interested in getting to know Crow or think anything is wrong with him or whatever, but they have a little bit more history with him, so it's easier for them to connect and relate to. And it kind of brings those feelings of weirdness to the surface when they're having to address somebody else as my husband instead of Zan, which is very similar to how, especially people who are older and set in their ways, like we had discussed in the previous episode, that it takes them a while to come around to the idea that, okay, I have these new people in my life. I consider, Selkie as my granddaughter because I've known her since she was born. But, what now labels and establishes, Mercury, Gelt, and Amethyst as my grandchildren. And so they have to completely redefine everything that's going on in their brain with that, and it takes a little bit of time. And it's not to say that their effort isn't commendable and that they're not, but it is really hard when it takes them a little bit longer to come around to this concept than you would like them to take. But, you do have to kind of give props where props are due.
Mm-hmm. And be patient. It's like you said. Sometimes they open slowly. Sometimes they acclimate slowly, and it's best not to just draw a line in the sand and say, "Here's your first offense. You only get one more,
and that's it.
And
You're
that's
done.
it.
You out of here."
Yeah. Sometimes you've got to let them make those mistakes.
No soup for you.
And correct them gently each time,
yeah.
And eventually you'll find that they come around. Amethyst, you wanted to?
Oh yeah. The grandmother that Selkie was mentioning earlier actually has gotten a lot better. Like, she's a little slower with progress in general, but she's been getting better, and I'm very happy that she is indeed getting better and making progress.
All right. What about Mercury? What is some of the hardest thing about being a kid in a poly family for the holidays?
Yeah,
that okay. Mike just attacked him. I saw it.
He was
came
hit
out of nowhere.
He was hit by an oncoming microphone.
It's very crowded.
No. He's not wrong.
No,
he is not.
Not wrong.
We bring a crowd wherever we go. Seriously.
Yep.
Yeah, sometimes I like it, but there's times when I'm like, this is really, really, really crowded. And
really hard to find your own space.
That's kind of expected with big families. Of course, it's going to be crowded. Of course, it's going to be all this stuff. But at the end of the day, you turn out to have fun, even though it's overcrowded, even though there's people there that you don't like. Or
Wait, which one of us don't you like?
that's like if, like for example, if you invited like a friend that you didn't like or something like that. This is toward general audience.
Oh, you mean like when you're in larger family situations and parties and stuff, and there are people there that you don't care for?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Well,
Like really young cousins.
Yeah, logistics can totally be an issue with families.
Yep, just so everybody knows, we did not pay them. They were not, compensated in
oh
any
no,
way.
they totally
for
were.
their-
They're always compensated. You have room and
time.
board here.
Oh, whatever. There are kids.
This
Of
was
course they
completely
do.
unscripted and
Yeah.
unrehearsed.
Obviously.
In fact, our oldest was not happy about the unscriptedness of
And
it.
the prep time of like 10 minutes.
Yeah,
Although I
not
thought
even.
his Scottish accent came out well.
Yeah.
It was better than yours.
Oh, I don't know about that.
I do.
Mm-mm. No.
I just
No?
need more scotch.
Oh.
I agree.
We hope that they were able to give you guys some insight and maybe, like we always like to provide some comic relief. It's not easy growing up as a kid in a polyamorous lifestyle.
It's not easy growing up as a kid, period.
It's not easy growing up as an adult in a polyamorous
What,
relationship,
we do not have to grow up.
let alone as a child.
If you haven't grown up by the age of 40, you don't have to.
Sweet, I'm good.
I'm
Yeah.
nearly there.
See?
I am.
There is one thing that I wanted to say that I didn't get a chance to. And that's the other day I was helping 2 of the kids with their homework. I sat there and thought about it, and I would have been busy with other things, except everything else had been taken care of because there's more of us. Because we're able to divide up labor, and because we're able to do those things, I actually got to help kids with their homework, and I felt good.
So did I. I didn't have to do math.
See that? Yeah, and that's the sort of thing. The math scared everything out of me, but we got through it, and it was awesome, and it was bonding time that I wouldn't have been able to get because I would have been busy doing other stuff, except somebody else had those things.
And one thing I did find pretty interesting is that Selkie was helping Mercury on math too.
Yeah.
So, with some problems that, it's it's a little more advanced stuff that I'm used to.
Oh, but they help each other with so much more than that.
They really
Oh
do.
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, they talk to each other about everything. There are things that, our youngest son talks to our daughters about, and they really work together and help things, and they share with each other, and it's really a great, there's so many perks for blended poly families to come together in such a close way. We've found it to, of course, be more beneficial than not. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing this.
Right, that was one thing that Jay and I, when we first started getting into the poly relationship, and it was to make sure that before we blended families, that moving forward with our relationship with Crow and now X, is that we wanted to make sure that Selkie was okay. Because she had an opinion in this relationship too. Even though she's a kid and everything, but it's important for us for her to be happy, to be healthy, to be in a comfortable situation. And even when we got with Crow and X, we wanted to make sure the other kids were fine too.
Yeah.
And so that was one thing. We would have family meetings and we would check in with each other to make sure that, hey, let's air grievances. Let's, what's going on? What's not working? What's working? What things do you want to do? Where do you want to bring things in or go this, that, and the other? So on another note, the purring you're hearing is brought to you by Ziggy.
Mm-hmm.
They're furball with attitude.
He's flicking an ear at me even though I'm petting him.
Yeah, well, you're touching him wrong.
So I'm sure there's a lot more that could have been said.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
super late here. The kids are all tired. We had a super busy day. We had so much fun taking family portraits. Even one of
Geld
actually stated, yeah.
He came out and said, only our family could make a photo shoot fun.
Yeah. And we did. We had a lot of fun. We had a family friend who's an amazing photographer.
Absolutely is.
Come out and brought his equipment and his knowingness, his photographic geniusness.
Wouldn't it be knowledge?
No,
yeah,
no.
no, it's knowingness.
Knowingness. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is knowingness.
He brought it out, and we went to a really awesome place, and the kids had fun, and we had fun, and we got to be out in nature all together today, and then Then we got to come home and cook dinner.
And we had Jay's fantastic gumbo and our potato salad. And it was